Okay, so this is just a recap of the visual literacy portion of understanding rhetoric in the introduction. So essentially, visual literacy is defined as learning to read visuals and images for their communicative and rhetorical value, which is kind of wordy. So in simpler terms, it's learning to analyze visuals and images so that we can differentiate between the obvious and the underlying message or messages. So learning to pick visuals in particular apart. So here we have the splash page or the New Yorker cover that we were looking at last week, and typically a splash page illustrates the dominant visual metaphor which will be used throughout the chapter, and essentially it sets the tone of what is to come. So although we don't think of a magazine cover as being a splash page, essentially a magazine cover often sets the tone for the magazine's content, or at least that issue's content. So in this case, the use of um, YouTube and PS3 and Jessica Alba, all those things suggest that in this case the kid's brain is saturated by media and technology, and which leaves very little space for important subjects such as algebra or algebra, as one of you pointed out, which is just the very fact that it's misspelled emphasizes that it's not of utmost importance to the student. So if you look at this cover, here we have a man who's just received a doctoral degree, and he comes home and hangs his diploma on the wall, and his parents in the background look on rather sadly as their son returns home, which is not something we expect, because usually you don't expect someone with a doctorate to move back home. And this concept is furthered by the mixture of adult and childlike objects, right? And in particular, what stands out to me is the signs on the door that say Tim's room and keep out, which are typically signs that you would see on a teenager's door, and yet here we have a full-grown man with the signs on his door. So all of this contributes to the idea that getting a degree does not necessarily guarantee you financial stability or the ability to live on your own, which is kind of sad now I think about it. Okay, so another thing that the chapter talks about is the idea of framing an image in order to control what the person views. So in some cases, it's a matter of zooming in on something so that you focus on a specific detail, and in other cases, it's a matter of panning out so that the person can gain a larger perspective. So in this case, they've cropped the image so that you focus on the superhero figures on the desk, but you might not even know it's a desk if they didn't pan out at one point. So really, framing is about controlling the vantage point for the viewer. So if we look back at this cover again, if you crop the image and give the vantage point of looking at the doorway and this side of the room, we can't see what's on the other side, right? So that isolates what we're focused on. And if we were given a different vantage point of the room, we might have a different perception of the image. So there are many facets to visual literacy. It's not just a matter of looking at illustrations. Anytime we look at a painting or an ad or a sculpture, a building, these are all things that we can deconstruct. And the same goes for what we look at on the screen, right? When we're looking on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, we should be dissecting what we're looking at. And so it's important that we continue to pick apart these things and think about how what we're looking at contributes to a larger message. So here they have the example of the Human Rights Campaign logo, which is simpler than what we were looking at before, right? And they talk about how the blue and yellow are bright colors, and that the equal sign is very simplistic, but it's still sending this universal message on behalf of gay marriage rights. And if you look here, here are two images that also have larger political messages behind them. On the left, you have a version of the human rights logo in red, right, which is still about marriage equality. And then on on the other side, you have this cross image, which was designed to respond to the Human Rights Campaign logo. So if you remember, I think it was in March of this year when the Supreme Court was deciding on these two huge gay marriage rights cases. A lot of people put this Human Rights Campaign logo as their profile pic on Facebook, essentially saying that they were for marriage equality, right? And then some people in response put up this cross image, which was refuting the idea of gay marriage rights, or at least saying that they were standing for traditional marriage. I think depending on who you ask, they would have a different opinion. But so it's not just a matter of these logos carry a lot of weight behind them. It's not just this one image that you look at and you go, oh, that's nice, right? So what we should do now is look at a video and think about how the images on the video contribute to the words being spoken. So this is a TED video by John McWhorter. Essentially, he's talking about how texting is it's a dialect of language, and that people shouldn't be so hard on texting as a language. So what I'd like you to do is watch the video and don't take any notes, and then when the video's done, go ahead and write down some things that are memorable to you, and then go back and watch it again and look at how the words or the images that appear on the screen and the gestures contribute to the words that are being spoken.